number one predictor of long-term happiness and well-being is strong, connected relationships. It's number one. The Harvard Study of Adult Development is the longest, in-depth, longitudinal study on human life ever done. And here's its conclusion. Good, nurtured relationships lead to people being happier, living longer, and during that longer life, they're physically and mentally healthier. Now let's break that down a little bit more into the three main lessons from this study. Number one, social relationships are really good for us physically. People who are well connected to family and friends and community live longer. And number two, it's not about the number of relationships or whether you're married or whether you're in a committed relationship. You can be lonely in a marriage, but it's the quality of those relationships. Number three, good supportive relationships are really good for us mentally. Good relationships are a protective factor against memory decline with aging. That personal connection creates mental and emotional stimulation that's really good for our brains. So what about the opposite of this? We know that quality connections with our family, friends, and community are good for our health and happiness. But the absence of this is bad for us. People who are more isolated than they want to be are less happy. They start to decline earlier in life and they live shorter lives. Loneliness is quite frankly toxic. And here's the sad thing, that research shows that 1 in 5 Americans will report that they're lonely. Now, you may feel like your relationships are strong. You feel supported in life. You've got close connections to others. Or you may be experiencing loneliness. Or you may fall somewhere in between. But no matter where you are right now in terms of the quality of your relationships, there's two things that I need you to remember. Number one, like all things, when you work on it, it will improve. And number two, maintaining strong connections takes consistent effort. So what might leaning into relationships look like for you? How do we make those improvements or maintain those strong connections? And the good news is that the possibilities are endless. But the bad news is that the possibilities are endless. Just like deciding on what workout routine to lean into, or whether to be gluten-free or plant-based, or whatever the new trending nutrition plan is, can prevent people from making improvements or making decisions, having endless possibilities can feel paralyzing. So we're going to simplify it. But for now, I just want you to spend a minute reflecting on your relationships. Evaluate where you feel like they are now. Remember, no progress is made without evaluation. So let's start there. So first, go ahead and I want you to write down just the 3 to 5 most important relationships in your life. And those relationships can come in many forms. It could be your spouse, your children, your parents, your grandparents, your friends, your church, your community. Just jot them down. And then we're just going to do a quick evaluation and thinking about these relationships. But before we do that, in case you need to hear this, if you find yourself a little worried about addressing or facing a certain relationship in your life or lack of relationships, maybe you're feeling disconnected from your spouse or feeling like you haven't been investing into your friendships or you've been holding on to that grudge with your sister for too long. This is exactly why we're doing this, to find improvement. And remember, no improvement happens without self-evaluation. And when you work on it, it will improve. So I want you to just give those relationships a score on a 1 to 10 scale of where you feel like they are now in terms of strength and connectedness. And no need to overthink it, just a quick 1 to 10 score. And when it comes to relationships, oftentimes it doesn't occur to us to work on them in a very tangible way. You know, if our golf swing is off, we can usually come up with some drills to do to consistently drive improvement. If we feel like our nutrition is lacking, we can usually find a few things to start implementing to get healthier. The same concept applies to improvements in our relationships. So let's choose one relationship or group on that list to start. Maybe this is your spouse or your kids or your group of mom friends. Or maybe you don't feel a part of a group right now. Then maybe start with a key person or people that you'd like to spend more time with. So go ahead and circle or write down that person or the group that you want to start focusing on first. Now, let's just put some thought into it. What is one thing you can do that could help improve the relationship? Now keep this in mind. For those closest to us in our lives, we probably already have a laundry list of things that we'd like the other person to do to improve the relationship. I can think of a couple things I'd like my husband to work on. We're not usually at much of a loss for this side of it. Now, you may not want to hear this, but you have to be responsible and only responsible for your side of it. The good news, though, is that when you work on your side of it, it's really hard for this not to improve the relationship and to improve what the other person or people bring to it. So think about it. How can we put some more effort into it? Here's some examples. In fact, the director of that Harvard study of adult development gave some recommendations. You could replace 30 minutes of screen time per week with people time. Or try something new with a friend that you can enjoy together. Or go on a long walk with your spouse a few times a week. Committing to giving your partner one compliment per day. Committing to one date night per week. Think small, but think consistent. And this thing that you come up with may or may not find its way into your process goals. But I want you to at least find some way to help yourself prioritize whatever you came up with. So send that text to a friend that you want to connect with right now to just set it in motion. Reach out to the babysitter to set up a date night with your partner. Put the reminder for that thing into your phone or into your calendar. Remember, when you work on it, it will improve. In the next video, we'll keep working on these happiness hacks.